Baby, you listening to the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and it's another week of being stuck as a prisoner in my own home. But now I'm wondering if I'm doing the right thing. I mean, places are starting to open up and I want to go. Going out to eat, doing things with friends, letting my kid play with his friends, they are all so important to me. But I'm still staying in for a bit longer. Call me crazy, as I've been doing this for the better part of 70 days, and this thing most likely is not going to kill me or my family. And I'm not friends with too many old people, so the impact for me personally is minimal. I could be a dick and just head out and live life, but I'm afraid of this thing. I really don't want to get it. So while I've been saying that I'm staying in for the greater good, there are also some selfish reasons as well. I don't want this thing. But for me, I'm lucky. I have a family, so I have social interaction. Sure, my wife wants to kill me at times, and I'm finding that 5th grade math is way harder than it used to be, but I feel really bad for those of you that are serious about isolation and are single. I can't imagine the boredom at this point. But it's not all boredom. I've talked to a couple people who have been using their Tinder and Grindr and whatever platforms they're on to hook up with people. It's so crazy, but I know most of us, single, married, or whatever, are stuck at home. And we need someone or something to do or something to look forward to. Which is why I have created the best challenge on the internet. It's a beer chug on Instagram Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It's where I get listeners, athletes, and really anyone over 21 years old to chug a beer against me. I chat with my guests for a couple minutes and then I slam a beer. If you beat me, I send you a pair of spy sunglasses or goggles. But the odds are that you are not going to beat me because I am currently 12-0 as of recording this, but by the time you are listening to this, I should be 15-0, which is pretty impressive. So, if and when I beat you, you will need to provide something that your town is famous for and ship it my way. Joel Dubay from Maryland sent out some Maryland crab cakes. Ryan Balls from Chicago, he sent out some deep dish Chicago pizza. You get the idea. And the best part is, win or lose, it will give you something to look forward to. And we all need that right about now during coronavirus time. If you want to join me, shoot an email to Mike at The Powell Movement or reach out to me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and you can get in the action. But you aren't here to find out how I'm the bestest, fastest beer drinker you know. You're here for a podcast. And this week, I step out of winter to talk to skateboarder Dave Bachinsky. If you don't know about Dave, Google his name and El Toro, and that will give you an idea of what Dave is all about. And the podcast is a look into the life and times of a super laid-back, good-hearted dude that is Dave Bachinsky. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to please support my great sponsors. This is more important now than ever. They are Evo, Stanley, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with Dave Bachinsky.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going, man?
Good. Just actually hanging on out. Just posted up with the little dog. Trying to stay warm over here.
What kind of little dog do you have?
I got a little Chihuahua.
Okay.
A little street pup that I got in the streets of LA.
We were going to do this podcast like a week or so ago. And when we were talking, were you in LA and then you did a road trip through the quarantine all the way back east?
Yeah, I was. It was like we were down to the wire. We ended up wanting to move for like the last 3 months. And then finally it came down. We were like, all right, let's get it going. And then everything just like arose with the virus. And we were like going to check out apartments. And it's just so hard. People have masks on, it's just like a weird situation. We're like, we got to move all this stuff in. We were like, we just got to get back home for a bit. It's just so much better with everything going on and just less skating and trying to find a house with a garage to have a wood shop. It was a lot at hand. So we were like, let's go enjoy with the family and just kind of hang out till like mid-July.
Yeah, and then figure it out then?
Yeah, we just did like a quick 3-day trip and it was gorgeous. Good change of like a regular city lifestyle.
You mean 3-day trip, your road trip from LA to the East Coast?
Yeah, it was quite the mission. The last day, it was like 21 hours of driving. Like we just tried to like troop through it. We got like on this kick, me and the wife. We were like, all right, like we had like some ideas of like what we want to buy, like house wise and like little things. We're like just kept driving and all of a sudden we're like, it's really late. Like we got to pull over, but every campground was closed. We were like, oh shit, of course that was going to happen. But we ended up just like sleeping out a little roadside thing for like 2 hours because we were just like in a square box, like just so much stuff we brought. and we just trooped it back home. So we just got up to Seabrook, New Hampshire.
And is that your style when you road trip? Is it more camping than hotels?
Always. Definitely.
And with the podcast, I'm going to start this one out talking about God, and I never ever talk about God. But skateboarding is going to be in the Olympics. And do you think God created COVID-19 as a way of saying fuck you to the Olympics and keeping skateboarding out of it?
Oh, shit. Definitely an interesting time in skating with everything. You know, some people, they train and they try to make it happen, and they are making it happen, you know? So it'll be interesting. It's actually bringing everyone together throughout the world, even though at this time it isn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see 2021.
When you first heard that skateboarding was going to be an Olympic sport, what were your thoughts?
Over the last 5 years for me, it's just been doing smaller contests and throughout the world. Like World Skate is amazing. They opened up the doors for me, and it was really amazing just to be on the road and kind of see between each stop, like going to Russia, seeing that like little local crew that had so much backbone. They were amazing. Like those guys ripped, and I really got to meet them. So all these small contests that added up throughout, and now with the Olympic qualifiers, like everyone in the world has a chance. So seeing all these people throughout everywhere come together, it's like the raddest thing right now. I mean, we're talking about young bucks, like 13-year-old kids just doing stuff that you never would even imagine right in front of your eyes, just flawless runs. It's a whole new world, the contest game over the last 2 years when the Olympics actually was coming all about. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, you know, when snowboarding first got in, there were a lot of people excited that snowboarding was going to be part of the Olympics. And then there were legendary riders like Terje Hawkinson, who said that he was not going to attend the Olympics, even though he could. He thought it was bad for snowboarding. And are there two schools of thought in skateboarding?
I mean, skateboarding is always going to be pure. My backbone of it is just get out and search those random roads. Like that's skateboarding to me, is being with a crew and just making the most throughout a trip, a city. That's skateboarding. But when it comes down to contests and everything, it's like, it's a different thing. It's crazy. You travel for like 5 days and it comes down to 2 45-second runs. And it's what you make of that, you know? But with the U.S. skateboarding team, actually, the backbone of who's running it, Josh Freeberg, he's been in the industry for so long and like ran 401 magazine. Like the coolest thing to our generation when we were kids, having VHS monthly skate video subscriptions sent to our door. Like he's been holding it down since the early 90s. And I think he's going to do a solid job for the U.S. and just bring it all together, you know?
So there's a core element involved, which gets it some respect, because it's still the IOC, which is like one of the most corrupt organizations out there, I feel like. And what used to be looked at as maybe the X Games was like the biggest contest in the world. Now it's the Olympics, and there's a bunch of old white dudes that are in charge of it, which is like the anti of what every 15-year-old angry teen is about.
Yeah. Literally, I just kind of try to stick to just doing me and hanging out on the side with the friends and enjoying, you know, like other than Josh Freeberg, I know some of the people running it, but it's not like I know everyone to the top tier, you know?
Yeah,
So
totally.
The people that I know are just amazing, but that's just a whole other thing. I like to get in and get out of those contests, you know? I'm there for like all the fans and, you know, just skating with friends.
Yep. Well, the Olympics were canceled because of this virus, and this virus is really a scary thing. It's a lung eater. Do you still smoke cigarettes?
5 years ago, I quit. You know, you always got to have a change in life, and from time and again, it can happen. Let's just say that. I called it basically the seasonal change, and it was like 5 years ago. I was living in the Thrasher warehouse over at Double Rock, and all the sawdust and just smoking and that lifestyle, it just caught up to me, and I was just like spitting blood, and I was like, can't be living like that, you know? Like I'm only like 26 years old or something. And I got sick for like a week, and I was like, you know what? Just give it a go. Like just try to quit. And it was the simplest, hardest thing ever. I swear, something in my genes, I got kind of like ulcers from acidic foods and stuff. It would be like a little cut in my mouth. After 16 years of smoking, like my mouth has had like the worst effects from quitting, but in the long haul, I think it's going to be that much better. You know, like nowadays, things are more pure in the sense of what I'm eating and where I want my body to be. So it's looking at what is in cigarettes, there's no way I would ever still smoke, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at one point in your career, you were not a pillar of health. You were known for like eating bacon a ton, probably drinking a ton of beer and smoking a shit ton of cigarettes, and who knows what else. So as you've gotten older, I think you're past 30 now. Have you totally changed your lifestyle?
Oh, like no other. Literally, I want to skate till I can't move. And just getting older, it's so crazy. Like when you're 18, you're constantly on the go. You're just living like snacks, whatever. It's all the same. And that's the lifestyle. It was just like, okay, you turn 21, you're like partying with friends. And I think there's like little chapters, but now with social media and everything evolving, it's so much more pure what you can get out of just what people throw out there for information. Looking at ingredients, you know, it goes such a long way. I mean, for what it is, it's like, I think it's just trying to be more pure, you know? You gotta keep the life afloat.
Yeah, and I think the perception of being a smoker has totally changed from when you started to when you quit. When you started, it was cool, probably. Everybody was doing it. But now, if you go smoke a cigarette on the corner, you're pretty much a criminal. You're better off smoking a joint on the corner.
I mean, I'd much rather have the smell of weed in my face than a cigarette, that's for damn sure.
Yeah. And it's funny how that changes when you quit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally just being in a car with someone that smokes now, I'm like, it just changed my world. It's so bad overall. Like, we've seen how many people that are like close in family and people passing. It's like times are changing and you gotta keep it on a pure level.
Okay. And you must save a shit ton of money because smokes are expensive. And really, sponsors are one of the ways that you get your money. And sponsors are the reason that we're doing this interview, because I asked the dudes over at Stanley who they sponsor that I should talk to, because they're one of my sponsors as well. And I love using their pint glasses for ice cold beers. But they were very stoked on you. And they threw out your name. And I was like, I know that name. I know that dude. And I Googled you real quick. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, that's the guy that kickflipped El Toro. I should talk to him. It would be an awesome podcast, given I'm not a skateboarder. I skated in the 80s and I still keep up with the sport and kind of know what's going on.
Heck yeah.
But I interview people, man, and it doesn't really matter what you do. So I'll tie Stanley into this whole thing by talking about the business that you run right now. Can you tell me about your side hustle that you have, what your business is all about?
Dude, that is amazing. Yes, thank you for having me on. I mean, for me, like on the side of things of skating, it's all about recreating something. And it's just making those kind of missions and yeah, making something out of nothing. And when I was back in Boston about 5 years ago, my friend, he shot photos and he made over the winter time a picture frame with a photo that he shot with the recycled skateboards was the frame. And I was like, oh, that's cool, you know? And he just kind of opened a door in my life when I ended up like leaving and going to LA to escape the winter. I was shooting a lot of film photos over like the course of 5 years, and I had all these photos of my friends, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should just on downtime make like some Christmas gifts to bring back home. And just making little photo frames was like the funnest thing, just messing around in my like room just with broken parts and lining up images and everything like that. It was just cool to mess around. And I ended up just giving them away. Later down the road, I ended up doing a gallery and all the photo frames ended up selling. And I was like, I got to start raising money for back home. Like, it's what brought me to like where I am today, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up, yeah, just basically started making little things, and it has turned into just a little bit of everything. It's basically everything I live for is just trying to recreate or restructure. Like, I walk into an antique store and I see, like, for instance, an old coffee grinder with a wooden handle. I want to put skateboards on that, you know? Like, everywhere we go, these little cabin houses, there's so much unique, cool stuff that you can intertwine with broken skateboards because it's just going to end up in a landfill. So for me, it's like, I just see it everywhere, you know, what I can get into.
So you're pretty much taking your personal trash and turning it into art, right?
Oh, yeah. All the friends and people throughout the community, like I get boards throughout the barracks, at Manny's house. But I mean, the coolest part is all these people come out to California, like these little skate crews through Michigan and Ohio, and they just have like 5 dudes living in a house just skate ratting it. And they save all their broken boards for me. And it's like so rad because I'll end up giving them like a cutting board back and they get stoked, you know. It's like a tight little niche, you know, but like with the skateboarding community in LA, everyone's visiting for the winter. to get out and about. So that's where I get a lot of my boards.
Do you have a lot of woodworking experience, or is it something you're just trying to pick up and learn?
It literally turned 5 years ago, just getting a skill saw and just basic tools. And now it's turned into like a whole backyard where it's like, I got the planer, got the sander. There's all these like jigs. Yeah, it's blossomed. By all means, I need a wood shop, but I do love working outside. Like that's the coolest part. Like just looking up and there's a giant tree above me and I can just jam out, do my thing. But the day I can work at nighttime and actually have a solid plane where it's like a flat workspace, that's going to be a game changer.
Have you ever cut the shit out of yourself?
Just little cuts here and there. I did get like one saw to the stomach, basically. I was actually drilling out circles to make like these vases, and the thing ended up just catching and like just coming back at me and caught me like the quickest little bit. But I think it's just all those nicks to the hands when you put your hand in your pocket and you just feel like those little cuts, they add up. They kill.
I guess you're used to that, though, being stuck in a van just covered in cuts and bruises next to like 10 people. So you can deal with that.
Yeah, it seems about right. I mean, yeah, between shinners and then, cuts on the fingers, it's just a bad call. It sucks.
And I think you've done a collab with a luggage brand where you use your woodwork as the handle. Are there some limited edition Stanley products that we'll see coming out at any point?
Yeah, definitely. I'm so psyched. I've been just kind of messing around. Like as of the last 2 years, it's kind of turned into, you can make products, but then it comes down to the geometry side of things. And you start putting these cuts together like 45-degree angles. And when you have these 7 plies of skateboards all lining up with these colors, it's the coolest thing. It's just opened my mind. And I've just been working on that kind of stuff. So I'm doing just a small run of 8 thermoses that are going to be available over the summertime. And all that will go towards 100% fully towards the skate park where I grew up. And then we'll end up building something in October and having like a best trick contest. And it's pretty awesome because we end up getting like a concrete truck out there. I'm learning how to burn concrete. It's a whole nother game that I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just learning the ways,
Yeah.
It's just from the skateboard, and Stanley gives me that opportunity to just open up a new project. So yeah, I'm just kind of building and making new things come about.
Cool. Well, speaking of project, you were born in St. Louis, but you grew up in Lowell, Mass. And that's a place I'm very familiar with, but I've never been to it. I know it from an HBO special that had the best name of any HBO special ever. High on Crack Street, Lost Lives in Lowell. Did you ever see or hear about that one?
I did hear about that one. Lowell has its up and downs, by all means. It's an old industrial city, and it's fully revamping. It's amazing to see like the small community stores come about, and actually people my age just working together and just opening up like amazing things, like classic movie theaters, coffee shops, all that. But it's really an artist city, and there's so much foundation of Lowell. So you definitely get the ups and downs in time,
Is it like Portland and Mass?
Very similar, yes.
And growing up, is it like mom, dad together, rich, poor, average? How'd that work out for you?
It was a pretty crazy time growing up. So my parents ended up getting divorced when I was like 5, and we ended up driving up to Massachusetts around 1990. And my grandfather, he was a builder, and he ended up building the colleges, even stuff we would skate growing up just around the area. But he ended up adding an addition, so we had a duplex next to their house. So when I got there, my uncles, they actually were the ones that got me into skating. And we had an 8-foot mini ramp in the backyard. So that fully, like, as a kid, I was like 6 years old. So they're just putting me on the ramp. It was the best time ever. And I always looked up to them. That's what opened up doors for skateboarding for me. And yeah, my ma was just a single ma. I'm holding it down. She's amazing. She's got her PhD in nursing, and my dad was in St. Louis, and then he eventually came back to Boston. But we were just an average class family. My mom, and thank God for her support, and my dad, they both really supported me throughout.
And then are your uncles like your male role models in life at that point? Because, I mean, I'm guessing they're older. I think they start the Pioneers Board Shop or the Board Shop back then.
Yeah. I mean, being a kid and seeing someone air out of a mini ramp, it just opens your eyes. It was mind blowing. I still can't do that stuff. I'm like watching backside airs these days. I'm like, damn, I got to learn all this stuff. Everyone has like their chi of what they could do on a skateboard. It just blows my mind. That's the coolest thing about skating. But yeah, growing up watching them, those guys kindled everything for where I'm at for skating.
What age are you when you first drop in a mini ramp? Your mini ramp. Do you remember that like vividly?
You know what? I don't remember that, but I remember one summer I got up on top. I must have done it for like a year straight. And one day I just got up and I was scared and I wouldn't drop in for like a year straight. It was insane. But I remember that like no other for some reason. But I remember, yeah, just trying to learn how to kick turn. I remember a frontside kick turn just knocked the wind right out of me. The little things like that you'll never forget. But when we ended up, I think it was later down the road, probably like 9 years, because I was like 13. Lowell ended up putting in like 4 skate parks, and by all means, it was prefab park, the rawest like concrete to asphalt. So it was like nothing special, but it was the most amazing thing you could ever ask for as a kid. And the mini ramp was 5 foot, and that was the game changer. I mean, going from an 8 foot to a 5 foot was like, yeah, all right, now I can at least learn some, especially with mellow transition. It wasn't the classic 80s like mini vert ramp.
Now it is time for me to take my first sponsor break. And my first sponsor is Evo. And while Evo's retail locations are closed for distancing, don't worry. If you haven't been to evo.com lately, you are missing out on the best deals on the internet. Evo is the first website to focus on the digital space in action sports, and they do it better than anyone else. They have all the brands, all the products, and the resources and customer service to make sure you get what you need. If that's not enough, Evo offers free shipping on orders over $50, a low price guarantee, and a hassle-free return policy. And I have a special deal for you. Shop for any Evo branded product that is as good or better than the big brand stuff, and when you check out, use the code POWEL20 and you will save 20% on your entire order. Evo gives a percentage of sales back to local charities, and right now, that is more important than ever. My next sponsor is Stanley, the brand that has been a leader in keeping things hot and cold for over 100 years. They invented the vacuum bottle. You know, that green bottle that kept your grandpa and your dad's coffee hot all day long? Well, Stanley still makes a bottle like that, and they work better than whatever you're using right now. The reason Stanley is the leader in hot and cold is because their product is better. I mean, they created the category and they keep innovating. But Stanley makes so much more than that iconic bottle. I personally use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and my drinks stay hotter or colder than yours by at least an hour. Now you can get 30% off all Stanley products by heading to their site, stanley-pmi.com, entering the code POWEL and the number 30. It's that easy. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. When do you start skating street stuff?
I think we were like 16. I mean, the parks kind of blossomed the crew of friends, and we would just explore everywhere, and there was no Google Maps, so it wasn't like we could just search out like, okay, we're going to drive to this city. Like, we only went like what we knew of the highway, so limited. But growing up in Lowell, we had a downtown that was within the vicinity of like 5 minutes, so we were always going down there. But once we turned 16 and had a car, we went into Boston and went everywhere we could, because I mean, at that point, when you start searching your local neighborhood and then you have access to go wherever you want, we were just running wild. Like, those are the best of times, those teenage years, just with the crew, just night and day.
Yeah, did you wreck a car when you first turned 16?
Oh, shit. That wasn't even my fault, though. It was this road that was like, you dip down, go up, but they were cruising like super late at night, going so fast. And I tried to back up just the littlest bit because I was pulling out of the road. Sure enough, they came flying over, and I tried to throw it in reverse, and the tires just spun with the snow, and I just got hit right in the front. And they knew the cops and everything, and I was just like, oh shit. It was like my first week driving,
Oh man.
Worst case scenario ever. But ever since that, I've been pretty good, I definitely have done my fair share of traveling. That's for sure. This was actually my 5th time driving cross country, so
Jesus.
It's adding up. Put my miles on.
Yeah. Who's the crew back then? I mean, I think your email is your skate crew. I can't remember what your email name was. But...
Yeah. Yeah, we started a little thing. It was actually really funny because the local crew was Tech 5C. And I was like, Tech 5C, like technical. So it was 5 cents. It ended up equaling to technical. And that was like their crew. I thought it was so cool. And a friend from school, He had like, at that time, it was like, oh yeah, building a website was like the new cool thing to do. And it was, his website was Tech 3000. And I was like, you know what? Let's use that as our crew name, which is really similar, but it, totally different meaning. And it was just our friends. It was like Manny Santiago and Nicky LaMarche, and we still best of friends, and we always hang out. We're always doing something. But that was like the backbone of growing up 16 years old. Like those guys, we'd go everywhere.
And did you do anything other than skate when you were 16? Were there any team sports or anything in your life?
I basically just dropped everything for skateboarding. It was like, once you had the friends and everything like that, like we were doing so many little trips, and it ended up being like our crews ended up coming together, like Technical and Tech 3K, whatever, you know?
Oh, the two techs kind of got together?
Yeah, because they had the main filmer, you know? So Justin Hogan was the main filmer in Lowell. He got us out every night, and he had the generator, the lights, and we'd do missions every day if we could during the summer. And those are the days, 5 o'clock in the morning going to get McDonald's breakfast, so delusional that you're laughing at nothing. And that's how we rolled when we were 16. Like every night we were almost out. So it was cool, you know? I mean, those are the days of just growing up and really skate ratting it.
You said pure a bunch earlier, but everything is really pure when you're 16 years old. And then I think you get sponsored right about then. What does it even mean when you get sponsored back then? Is it just boxes of boards and wheels?
I mean, that was the craziest thing to me. I got lucky because, I mean, my uncle runs a skate shop, so he would give us a pair of shoes every other month or something like that from the local rep. That was like gold, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It turned into our favorite brands, and just seeing like packages at your doorstep at one point is just nuts, you know? My first real sponsor was Oakley, and they were a sunglass brand, and those guys are literally the best. Like, Dylan Radloff, this guy that was running for marketing, just gave me a shout and was like, hey, you want to come out to California and film? And I was just, I mean, I was struck. I didn't know what to think. I was like, holy shit, I'm getting on a plane. Like, that was the coolest thing ever, you know?
You're still in high school?
You know what? I think I was just out of high school at that point.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was about 17, 18, just visiting California, and ended up going out there for like just, a month, something like that, just real quick. Just staying with friends and whatnot. But that was like the dream, you know? Like, California was a whole nother realm. I remember driving cross country, MapQuest printed out. Like, it's a trek. It's a journey for sure from the East Coast.
Back then, do you fit the dirtbag skateboarder stereotype? Long hair, smoking cigarettes, and just skateboarding like from 11 p.m. to 3 in the morning?
Yeah, that seems about right. That was life, and it still is in a different term. Like, I live for those missions, getting out with the crew, just doing small little trips. I mean, being in LA, it's like every 2-hour vicinity is just amazing, you know, and it's different landscapes, and all those little small towns have the raddest little crews throughout. So, yeah.
When it's all coming together for you, you know, you're 17, 18, you're getting trips with Oakley, but I would think other sponsors are coming to the table too. Who's supporting you in that first phase of your skate career?
I reached out to Tony Vitello. He's like the father of Thrasher now, and he has just opened up so much for me in skateboarding. Yeah, he's the father for me. He was San Francisco based, and it was called Street Corner Distribution. And they ran like Venture Trucks, Lucky Bearings, Think Skateboards, City Skateboards. And yeah, he ended up taking me on. I turned AM for City, and he kept flying me out to San Francisco. And he just kind of opened up doors. He sat down with a lot of different companies between Adidas and just get me involved in different aspects of skating. And I remember that being like the coolest thing, like just going out there, because I mean, San Francisco is one of my favorite places to visit. And yeah, we just had a tight little crew out there. Like City Skateboards was like 8 of us throughout, mostly California. We were like Southern California based. Those were the days right there.
Are you touring a shit ton back then?
We do like little trips throughout, which was cool. Yeah, it was just like little trip videos. I think that was like the start of YouTube or something, which I had no idea about. But like, we just go film these little trips and throw them up online. And those are the days. City, like, we just had such a tight little crew.
When you say those are the days, I mean, you can look back and reminisce on how great it was. Is it also the time where it's like 8 dudes to a hotel room and more dirtbagging it than you've ever done in your entire life, but it's also the most fun of your entire life?
Yeah, that seems about right. I guess it's why when you have the right crew, it doesn't matter. It's just like you're in there for the mission, and it's just, I don't know, being in the West Coast and just doing those kind of trips opened up so many doors from like being in the East Coast is like the best thing ever. You have like this brick ground, it's raw and rugged, and you get like these cutty, cool little spots. But when you go to the Southwest and you have like these ditch canals that run for miles, like that was the coolest thing. I think we did like a trip to New Mexico, and that just blew my mind. It's a whole nother world. Those are the funnest little trips, stuff like that.
Do you end up finishing high school?
I ended up just getting my GED. So yeah, I ended up dropping out when I was 16, and literally the next year, everything just took off. I don't know if it was the best decision, but for me, I would do the same exact thing and yeah, run wild with the friends.
I've always said to a lot of people, if you want to go to school when you're 40, you can.
Definitely.
But you can't start a skateboard career at 40. So you have to do what you do when you can do it.
100%. I mean, nowadays, especially getting older, it's like so crazy what your body can withstand. That's the biggest thing for me. It's turned into like, if I was hurt, I'd be biking around and trying to just search out new spots. But now it's like, I want to see like the peaks of the local mountain range and trying to search the ditchways of where that water is going down and just try to find a new cutty spot with that. There's always like a search of rebuilding and yeah, keeping the life afloat.
Are you also doing contests at this point? You know, like the city years, I think, are what, like 2007 to 2010-ish?
Mm-hmm. It's crazy because I never even thought that I would be involved in contests for 8 years straight. The barrier was magazines and video parts. So between doing tours and just constantly just traveling, it was always just skating street. I mean, there was maybe one contest a year, which was Tampa Pro, and that was like the jam because it's all the friends and family and just wild out. But for what it was, there was no big contest that really I was involved in. I mean, I guess there was X Games and stuff like that, but it was so far away from that. It was just all magazine and out there with Thrasher and that crew, just kind of skating the streets. So around, I think it was like I was 25, 2014, something like that. Mountain Dew, they started doing Dew Tour, and I'd end up getting involved with those. And it was definitely a fun time. I mean, like I said, you travel for 5 days and you get to kick it with that crew like every couple months, seeing them at another contest. It's the same crew. I mean, new faces will show up, but it's definitely a different world of skating.
Yeah. Back during that time, were you part of the whole Adio crew before you ended up on Adidas?
I ended up catching the end tail. It was the craziest switch of time because I think their marketing, they had Nick Dompierre. And I was just like this kid that wasn't as big as him in the industry at that point.
Yep.
And Bam was kind of like their main image of like Adio. And I think they ended up just dwindling because Bam's thing was like falling off a little. And I just caught the end tail of like Adio going out. But the coolest part was like they were under the wing of Planet Earth. And that was like my favorite company of all time growing up.
Chris Miller.
Oh, literally the best thing. Those guys rule. That's what I grew up on. So I ended up getting like a couple packages from them, and then they all ended up going out of business. So it was like, oh shit.
Well, I won't say I was part of it, but I worked for K2 at the time. And Adio was bought, or Planet Earth was bought by the company that owned K2. And it was kind of a weird thing there. No one really knew what to think in the walls of K2. Everybody got some free shoes for a couple years, and then all of a sudden, all the Adio vehicles ended up being shipped up to Seattle, and it seemed like that brand died.
Oh, wow.
At least all the cool people were gone, and then they were licensed, and I don't even know if they have athletes anymore, but I think you can still get Adio shoes at, like, Kmart. But were you part of it at the end there, where just, like, everything dropped out? Because I was wondering what it was like on your end.
I caught one trip with them. It was pretty damn wild. I think, like I said, it was like the times of them like dwindling out, but it was one demo we did in New York, and I don't even know how I got there, but the next demo was in Rye, New Hampshire, which was where I was from.
The airfield?
Yes. It's like the biggest park in the Northeast, basically. It's an indoor park that's amazing. And we ended up getting on a small jet or plane that the guy ended up owning from Rye Airfield. So my one trip was just like quite the experience. We were like in a 12-seater little jet flying back home.
Was that your first private jet?
That definitely was my first small plane for sure. Yeah. But yeah, those days, I mean, Nick Dompierre was just ruling at skating. It was so cool to be like in like the van with him and just kind of exploring where we grew up, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'll get to the biggest part of your career, the like defining moment of your career for sure. It's like 2006. I think you're filming with Oakley. You head to El Toro. It's like a 20-stair set in California. And you do arguably the gnarliest thing that's ever been done. I mean, Ryan DeCenzo nollied it and he landed it almost as perfect as it gets. It's been 360s on a bike, but you kickflipped that thing. And first, is this one of those spots that you spend a lot of time thinking about, like the leap of faith or something when you're a kid? Like, I'm going to get that one day?
You know, I never thought of it like that. It's so crazy. Like, I think the biggest punch to me was like, I always looked up to my uncles. They were doing backside airs. Like, that was the coolest shit ever. But they couldn't do a flip trick on their skateboard. And they still barely can. Like, I would love to see them do it. So, growing up, being like 8 years old, I never thought I'd be able to flip my board. It was the barrier, you know? Like, I wasn't like really watching skate videos and anything like that and seeing people do that stuff. So when I ended up learning how to do flip tricks, I don't know, it just got me so sparked. Like every spot, I'd always be, you know, as a kid, you're always upgrading. And the amount of stairs that you could jump at that age, it was just like, let's just see where we could take it. And one night, my friend, we ended up skating a rail right by there and we went and checked it out. And he's like, oh, I want to back blunt the rail. And I was like, oh, I'll come back and try to skate it with you. And that was like a month before I did it. And I hit up Oakley and I was like, hey, I want to come out there. I want to see if this will work. I want to try to kickflip it. And we ended up going there. I hit up the friend. He ended up bailing. But yeah, just tried it. I mean, I was like a dozen tries in. Somehow it worked out. And yeah, I mean, that kind of was the game changer for putting me on the map for like an AM skater, you know? I didn't know it would ever go that far. You know, like just the word of mouth or anything. For me, it was just like kickflips at that point. I mean, I think I was around doing like 16 stairs, stuff like that, but it didn't seem that much more different. And still to this day, I mean, not till this day, I mean, I still try to jump, but that's a little over my depth right now, especially because I haven't jumped in a bit. But like, I've battled out, you know, 13, flat 13, and like you could come so close, but you just never know if you're going to get it. And that one, just trying to kickflip, I got one lucky one. I mean, I was just bottom of the barrel, like 12 tries in. Could barely even walk, but yeah, got luck of it and worked.
Puts you on the global skateboard map. The thing is, it's at a time where there's not the instant gratification, I don't feel like, of the internet today, where if you did that at 10 a.m., it could be online by 10:30, and the whole world will be talking about it. Back then, you have to wait till the Oakley video comes out and word of mouth. So are you hearing whispers about it and then that video drops and all of a sudden, like, you've made it?
I mean, I remember Manny, the best friend was like, dude, you didn't call me? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't even think of it like that. You know what I mean? He like found out from someone else or something. But yeah, like the barrier was always a magazine or a video part. And I mean, nowadays things have just changed. Like, it's like, what can you do? You're going to get recognized, which is the coolest thing about social media nowadays. Everyone has like their epic rad shit coming out. But yeah, I mean, for me at that time, I guess it kind of just blossomed my career.
So yeah, that video drops and shit starts happening for you on a bigger level. That's when you get on the Adidas team, which is a big deal. And are there any reservations? I mean, it sounds like you weren't too involved with the Adio thing, but I was thinking that since Adio was destroyed by the corporate monster, you're going to an even more corporate brand like Adidas. And do you have any reservations going to a corporate brand like that?
You know, it was crazy because I really got lucky with Tony Vitello. He sat me down with Bryce Kanights, and Bryce was like an amazing team manager. He was the coolest dude out.
Well, he's lived it all.
Yeah, so we sat down with Bryce Kanights, and he was just the raddest dude, you know? He's had his history and what he does, it was awesome to meet him on a different level, but then see what he's brought to skateboarding. But yeah, it was like a weird time because Bryce was the team manager, but it was the main foundation was through a soccer guy. So Bryce, I think, got weirded out by that. I'm not really sure if that's the scenario, but the things from what I heard, it was like not really as skater based as it is now. It was just a different realm, you know, but it was like the coolest thing because growing up, I always watched Bandness, Public Domain, seeing Lance mountain skate and being part of something that Lance was on. I was like, I'm down just for that sole reason. But for what it was, I think we did 2 years, just the coolest trips, and we had a great little crew. I mean, skating with Dennis Buznitz, still one of my favorite skaters, just fast and just charging everything. Those are like the best of times for like trips. Like the crew comes down to everything. When I ended up getting off the team, I mean, Adidas just did it so rad. They were doing so many more trips, and they've really brought like a great crew to the team.
Now it is time for my final sponsor break, and my final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery, and they have been brewing beer out of Bend, Oregon since 2006. And since they started brewing beer, they are committed to skiing, snowboarding, biking, and drinking beer outside. While I see a lot of copycat brands out there lately trying to mimic what 10 Barrel is doing in the outdoor space, no one puts their money where their mouth is like 10 Barrel. This year, they produced both a ski and a snowboard movie. The ski movie is Watch This, featuring Lucas Walks, and then they have Hold My Beer, a snowboard movie featuring Curtis Cizik. They had a whole lot more planned for winter, but with the quarantine, everything has been put on hold event-wise. The good news is that even with all that we're going through, you can still drink beer outside. Next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of Profuse Juice, a hazy IPA that I'm loving right now, and a beer that gives 1% of sales back to the Surfrider Foundation. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. With your skating, it's like you skate everything fast. You've got gaps, and the control you have flipping your board, I think, is unparalleled. You have mini ramp skills. It seems like you skate everything but rails, although you did have a handrail ad for Think. Do you stay away from handrails in the grand scheme of things? Like you said, everybody's got their own kind of niche and things they like to do, and you like flipping your board, but handrails never really been a big thing for you?
It's just, I mean, for growing up, it was all about rails. And you kind of get to this point where it's like, how far can you take it? And, you know, Manny was always like the tech kid. And I was like, okay, nollie or doing switch. And that was my thing. But after 12 stairs, I was like, what else am I going to do? I'm doing the same 10 tricks on every rail. And it gets so boring. Like repetition at that point was not a thing that I wanted to be doing. Like I want to skate everything, you know?
Yeah.
Skating is that. So yeah, I ended up just dwindling away and just kind of get more of the creative side and just trying to be more well-rounded. But yeah, it's crazy. Over the last couple of years, it's like I go to all these spots and they're like, oh, you want to skate this round? I'm like, I want to make something interesting, you know? You have to have like a bench before it or a set of stairs after it. I try to incorporate it somehow because I'm not doing what the generations, what they do is just so epic. And I'm not at that level where I want to be bringing my mid-range tricks into that kind of situation, you know?
Yeah.
I'll let Manny handle that section.
And speaking of Manny, I think you join up with him at Think. It's probably like 2010, 2011 when you get on Think. And is it because Manny's on the program and you want to be on a team with him, or how does that work out?
I mean, it was a rough time because Fausto Vitello ended up passing, and he was the main owner of Thrasher, and Tony is his son. And we were running city skateboards, hubba wheels, all that out of Street Corner. I was involved with that, but Think being under the same wing as City, Tony really wanted to focus on Thrasher and being part of that. So he ended up kind of just letting go and selling like little parts of the companies to different sections. Like Venture went over to Deluxe, and Strangebird, which is like low card, the raddest thing out, they ended up picking up Think and Hubba and a couple other companies, and Manny was involved. And I was like, dude, I'm sticking with this. Like, I'm all about being on the same team. We grew up together. Like, that's the coolest part ever.
You guys are best friends.
Yeah. So that was really rad. I don't think we even did any trips. I don't even remember one, but still it was like we were in San Francisco just enjoying like little things. But that's like the crazy time and era.
I don't know when Manny leaves the program, but eventually something happens with Think. They were a brand that was around forever. Do you know what happened there?
No idea. I mean, for me, I always remembered like Pat Duffy and like Dandra Hobel. Like that was the classic goodness that I was sparked to be involved in. And then Danny Fonzolita was like running it for years, and you had like Adrian Williams, like SF goodness. I mean, we had a tight little niche, especially, I mean, the team was amazing. But yeah, everyone ended up just going to different teams, and I just rode the ship with them till it sank. I remember not having a board sponsor for like 2 years, and I was like showing up to Tampa Pro, and I'm like, is this weird? Like, there wasn't like social media, there was no cuts. Like, they're like, dude, you're in Tampa Pro. Like, don't even worry, you know? But it was just like times like I was just like getting boards from friends, and then I'm part of this company called OC Ramps, and they build all kinds of stuff. And Ryan DeCenzo was there, where we were skating the warehouse. And he's like, what do you think about Darkstar? And I was like, damn, I've been like doing a ton of trips with Greg Lutzka to these contests, and I was always around skating with them. So I ended up hitting up Chet Thomas and was like, hey, is there any way I could get involved? Shortly after talking to him, after 2 years not having a board sponsor, it was great to have a box of boards at the doorstep. And Chet has really just been amazing with the support. I mean, between woodworking and just being creative and letting us have say in the graphics, it's really awesome to have that say in things. So he actually ends up pressing for my boards. They make them vertical ply. So instead of having like a 7-plied skateboard, it's 1 ply on the top, and then it's basically, imagine like a brick of boards just all pressed together. Just veneer, so you have like this giant rectangle skateboard shape, and they just slice little slices. So you have 2 plies that are flat, and then they put this blank down, and then you have 2 plies on the bottom, and that's vertical plied. So basically, my board has, let's say, 60 plies in it that are vertical in the middle of those 2 plies. So it's super colorful, and it's great for woodworking. So he kind of like has really just opened up my doors of woodworking and skating. He's done so much for me.
Seems like a perfect fit. In other sports, I talk to people about the team concept, because if you look at snowboarding or skiing, back in the day, there was your factory team, or the brands would have a team. Like in skateboarding, teams would go around, do a little bit of touring, maybe put out a team movie, and that was a big deal. And the brand was bigger than, I feel like, the athletes, but the athletes made the brand. And I think that's changed a lot in a lot of sports, where it's kind of become individual projects. But in skateboarding, it still seems like the team mentality is alive and strong. Do you see that as well, or do you see it changing?
Oh, I fully agree with you. I think it's all about the team. I mean, we have such a diverse team. It's amazing. But yeah, for back in the day, it was definitely always about, the brand. You know, that was what brought everything to the table. But now with the media and everything like that, with social media, it's like, it's cool. We have like constant feed. So it kind of changes. What you do is what you get back.
It does change everything, but when it first starts changing, say around 2010-ish, when YouTube is starting to really take hold, because it came out earlier, but I think people 2010 to 15, it's when it really just took over. And for you, your life is putting out edits, but they used to be video parts. People would wait for those to come out. And now with the flooding of the internet with clips, does it kind of dilute what's out there, where people have to really look for the good stuff?
I mean, there's just so much content out there, you know, like everyone's doing amazing, epic shit these days, you know, it's like the coolest thing ever. You wake up having your coffee and it's just like, geez, that just happened. But for what it is, it's the way of the world right now. And I think it's amazing because everyone's doing something and it's actually getting brought to the table. I mean, for a brand standpoint, it's kind of like, what your skaters are doing, you know, like people are really getting creative and opening up eyes to different outlets and just doing rad stuff. So it's cool to see everyone just doing their thing. Yeah.
Have you seen Wrecking Ball?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that dude at all?
I don't know. He came out of left field, but he comes in swinging. It's pretty amazing what he gets into, putting people straight into, their place. Got to keep things clean.
Yeah, man. A very interesting follow on Instagram. Speaking of brands, I talk to everybody about money because I like to find out about it a little bit, because the little kid, when you were 16 years old, you didn't know what you could make being a pro skateboarder. And I never really asked direct numbers because that's totally rude. So I try to do it in a roundabout way that's just as rude. So the world I come from, it's like the ski and snowboard world. There are a couple Tony Hawk dudes out there that make like millions of dollars, but they're a different level. The B level of ski and snowboard, they're making about $100,000 a year. And I would say that is 20% of the professionals out there. The rest of everybody is making $50,000 and below and is really struggling to make it by. Where I look at you as above average in where you would rank in the payment scale, what do you think the average pro skateboarder with a shoe sponsor, a board sponsor, sunglasses, streetwear, and an energy drink, what do you think they would make?
I mean, if you look at it now, it's a raw cut because you're only getting the top tier guys that really are making a lot of money, you know?
But a lot of money in skateboarding is what, like 300-400 grand?
That's the top tier. But when you break down like the mid range, you got to think about the sponsors, like, especially with what you were saying, like it's diluted with social media. Like anyone can start a company. Like I go to the skate park and you see like these little kids come up and they're like, hey, I got like this shirt brand. It's like, dude, that is so rad. Like, you're how old, you know?
Yeah.
So everything is diluted and it's hard, you know? Business is business at the end of the day. And I see my friends, they just turned pro and it's like they're working a job, you know? Like sponsors are crucial. And I think it's like a time where the core brands really need to stick together between skate shops, and there has to be some collaborative projects that come about because it's a hard time for, I think, everyone. But as a skater, you really got to pull your weight. It's like between catalogs and just content, especially with social media. It's hard to follow up and have those commitments. Even outsourcing outside of skateboarding, like it's huge, you know, that's like a make or break for a lot of people's careers. And I'm thankful so much for social media. I mean, it's just the coolest thing. You get to tell your story and you get to create stuff. And that's my favorite part is film work. Like I'm huge into time lapses and aerial view, the perspective and how things are done. I think it's so cool. It's a great outlet, social media. But for the mid-range skater, it's a 50-50 situation. You don't know. Some might have jobs, some might just be making it. And I think for those kids that are making it, like around the time where you turn pro, it's usually, I mean, kids are getting younger and turning pro nowadays, you know? You see kids like CJ Collins and then you get, it's probably like 18 to 24 range, but hopefully if they're in that middle bracket, hopefully they're living with a crew of skaters. So they're dwindling that house cost because LA, I mean, you're paying $2,300 a month for just a house.
Yeah.
And personally, that was just me and my wife. So when I ended up getting married and not having that skate crew, that changes all my finances. So I think that's really huge for the kids coming up is to keep in mind of the future and different things, stuff like that, you know, financially.
And financially for you, do you have any toys, any properties, investments that will help pay you when you're done skateboarding?
You know, it's been like up and down. So as of the last year, I actually just got involved with a company called Flat Bar Energy, and it's a skater owned energy bar. And it's awesome. They're doing 3 different kinds of bars and it's all based in Texas and skate around. So I'm super hyped to be a part of that. But for me, yeah, I never really invested in anything besides stocks. So right now with the market, I mean, that's been like my main thing. It's just kind of doing something on the side with all the chaos going on.
But you were smart with your money. You didn't just blow it.
For most of my career, I did. I was just like 22 to 26. Like I was just living with skaters and just filming parts. Like I wasn't really thinking. I was just throwing it towards rent. Like I never really had any guidance. And luckily, like my mom, like she's like, come back whenever you want, you know? So it's cool to have that kind of option when you're growing up, even though I never took advantage of it, which I wish I did because you go back for a couple months and you think about 2,300, that's about 10 grand in 4 months.
Yeah.
I mean, LA is expensive, but it's like you got to really think about those kind of things. And yeah, it's just money at the end of the day. You just got to set yourself up right and think about what you can get into, you know?
I do. Well, we've talked about your career, but we haven't really talked about the actual skateboarding part of it. But this is the internet era, so everybody can watch your shit. And if there's one part that defines what your skateboarding is that people should watch, which one would it be?
Oh, geez. That is so hard. There's so many parts throughout. I mean, I just finished my 18th video part and it was all filmed in China. Like every part is so different. Growing up in New England to, yeah, an overseas part. I mean, part that defines me, I guess, if you want the pure, I'd probably say like Shape Deuce. So it's basically a Boston based, like it was just all our friends. My friend ended up just making a little board brand called Shape and we ended up just filming guest clips, whatever. And then it turned into the crew and that ended up being called Shape Deuce was the video. So that was like the times of me being around 24 and I was just in Boston, just skating with those guys every day. And that was the greatest times back in New England. I'd definitely say that was like my mid-range skating. Like I was fully in it, but party days and just good times.
Cool. Well, at this point in the show, I have something that I call inappropriate questions. With a lot of people, I'll get someone that they know to ask 3 inappropriate questions, and they'll usually get a good response from you. I don't know many people that know you, so I wasn't able to do that. But I am going to ask you 3 inappropriate questions that I came up with, because really, it's not hard to come up with inappropriate questions. So the first one is, I feel like the life of a pro skateboarder or a pro whatever is about to change. And while you might not want to hear it, I don't want to hear it either, because I'm going to lose sponsors as well. But there's going to be a time with this whole virus when brands are going to have some troubles. They're going to have to make some tough decisions. And do you think about that at all?
You know, I would definitely say that everyone is thinking as a community. And I think they're really trying to bring what is the best to the situation, especially for a company standpoint. So it kind of defines who you are and what you're going to bring to the table and be about. I think it's huge what people are doing for local businesses, stuff like that. It's all about community when it's all said and done, I think.
Have you seen any changes at any of the brands that you're with yet? Have people been furloughed or lost their jobs?
You know, it's a really tough time throughout right now. I've seen friends lose jobs, not in the skate community, but different aspects. And dude, it's just a rough time. You know, you were saying having investments, and I've always thought about making like a small little coffee shop. And my friend in Portland, Josh Matthews, he's an amazing skater, and him and his wife just got hit so hard. When you invest all that money and just, you can't open up shop and you were planning on, like, it's devastating. And I do everything I can to just support those kind of people right now, because I'm not in those shoes, but I see myself near what they're doing, and it's tough times.
Yeah, it does suck. So I will go with question number 2.
What do you got?
Let's see. With skateboarding, you are put in sketchy situations more often than, say, skiing, snowboarding, or wakeboarding. I'm sure you see a lot of shit that's really batshit crazy. And what is the wildest situation that you've been in? What's happened in the streets that you'd rather forget about?
Nothing too crazy has ever happened. Actually, I take that back. I saw my friend get hit by a car, and that was life-changing for me. I mean, literally starstruck. You know, you just see your friend ride away from a trick and just go into the street and just literally, I mean, he got hit and just flew 40 feet, just did a backflip. We were all ghosted. And I walked over him. I just said, say anything to me right now. And he just said a word, and I was like, you're all good. Just looked at him. I was like, you're fine. And I just picked him up. We moved him over. He was good to go. But I mean, gnarly experiences like that, I never want to live like that again in my life. And then it's changed the way that I skate. Like if I'm skating something into the street, there's no way I'm not having someone look out. That's the life-changing moment. Other than that, I mean, just dumb random stuff. Of course, in Lowell, we ended up getting robbed once, which was crazy. Like, kid just jacked Justin Hogan's camera. I still, to this day, I've never had anything like that happen. But it was just crazy because it all happened so quick. And we were just skating Jack Kerouac's Memorial Park. Amazing little spot in downtown. And it all happened so quick. And then 5 minutes later, another friend came by. You know, it's just a small little town. And we told him. And 5 minutes later, he ran to the kid, knew who he was, and got the camera back.
No way.
And it was nuts. It was just like, oh, shit. Like, life got real for a second. Of course, it happens in Lowell, but you never know what you're going to get into. In skateboarding, it's just such a crew-based thing, and it's awesome. So, I mean, we've been in the ruggedest parts in that community, like even some places in Baltimore, like the raddest people come out in the neighborhoods. And if you were walking without a skateboard, it might be totally different, you know?
Yep.
But it just brings everyone together.
All right, my final inappropriate question. What is the funniest but most fucked up thing that you've seen one skater do to another while on tour?
Oh, shit. I don't even know.
You guys trash hotel rooms?
I don't know if I have anything really good. I mean, I've heard stories, but I missed out on them. They were just trips I was supposed to be a part of and like little things that I'm thinking of. But yeah, nothing crazy.
All right, man. Well, that's how we will end the podcast. I want to thank you for your time. Your career's been an awesome one. I mean, the big exclamation point is El Toro, and it's funny how one trick can define a whole career. I mean, that really is what made you explode, given you were doing a ton of other shit that backs that up. But that one trick puts you on the map and lets you ride out a career where you still have to produce, but that thing speaks volumes for what you're all about, and I thank you for your time, man.
Oh, dude, Mike, thanks so much for having me. It's been amazing. I mean, craziest story? Let's just say skateboarding in general. Get out there and ride, and the stories will happen.
So that was time with Dave Bachinsky, and what a cool, laid-back dude. His story is an interesting one because it sounds like he didn't come from much, but he came from everything that would make him successful in life. A supportive mom and two uncles who were into the skate scene and culture made skateboarding part of his daily life from the time he was just a little kid. Having a best friend in Manny Santiago had to push him even though he didn't realize he was being pushed, and both of those dudes pushed each other and skated their way out of Lowell. But Lowell and skateboarding gave Dave everything he's had in life, and he's going to make sure that he gives back to both skateboarding and Lowell through his wood products that are sick, and you can buy on his website, shape3.com. Good dude, good story. At this point, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. I also want to ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on. Subscribing to the podcast is also greatly appreciated. Finally, I need to thank my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Evo, Stanley, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Please be safe and have a great week, everyone.